Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is that you are tuning in with me. Hi, my name is Lindsay Smith. I'm a Partner Success Manager here at Supered, and this is Get Supered 101. Purpose of this webinar, camp, class, video, whatever you want to call it, is to get a good sense of Supered, how to navigate through Supered, how to get your content where your people are working, as well as kind of how to use each and every Supered asset. Yeah, I like that sentence. We'll go with that sentence. A couple of housekeeping items as we kind of wait for people to trickle in. The platform that we use is called Get Contrast. It's called Contrast. It's getcontrast.io. It is a fantastic partner to work with if you are in the market for a webinar platform. But a little bit of a note on how their chat works. There's a little bit of a delay. I think it's about 10 seconds between the audience chat and the speaker chat. So what I see on my side. I absolutely encourage questions as we go along. Please put them in there. Don't worry about interrupting my flow. I've got ADHD bad. So I love having my flow interrupted because otherwise I get bored. I interrupt my own flow. But if I don't see your question right away, that's okay. Don't panic. It just probably hasn't popped up on my side yet. Other housekeeping items is yes, I do have my Christmas tree up on November 7th. I don't feel bad about it. It's pretty. Anyway. So I like to tell people don't yuck my yum. I'm in the States. I'm not ignoring Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving has its day. Christmas has its season. Jacob, you know what? I'm glad to have my ADHD friends with me. So you understand. You'll understand. Okay. The other part of this call, camp, webinar, whatever we're calling it, right, is that it's a little bit interactive. So as I go along, I would love for you to pull up your Supereds, log in and follow along with me as we go through kind of the tour, as well as when we are starting to create bases, cards, content, getting them where people are working. Last thing before we dive in, if you are in the camp of what I like to call my super curious, you are not sure what super does, you are here because you saw a link on LinkedIn, you're wondering what is with all of the pink. I mean, you and me both. You can sign up for Supered for free. You can join for free, sign up, it'll be a free account. You'll have access to just about everything that we go through today. And then if you are blown away by it, as I was when I first saw it, then definitely let us know. And we will get you hooked up with one of our sales guys so that you can really get Supered in your life. All right, cool, let's get started. All right, welcome to Supered. So this kind of makes me feel like tour guide Barbie, right? As we go through here. But first and foremost, we have our home screen. This home screen is completely customizable. And so it gets quite powerful if you customize it in the right ways, right? So you can put in like a welcome message here. You can put in forms. So this is a HubSpot form. So if you have for your team certain things that you need them to submit via a ticket, via a form, whatever, you can put in that form there. You can put in links to certain things. So if you want to put links to trainings that you have for your team or specific things that you need them to focus on, your value props, like your mission statement, whatever you need to have put into this homepage, you can do that here. Right underneath that, we have something called tasks. That is part of a beta right now that we have called action plans. It is active in our partner accounts. Go ahead, poke around on it. We will have a camp dedicated to going over action plans. So keep your eyes and ears open for that when that comes along. I'm not going to go very deeply into it in this call, just let you know that it's there. Moving right along, we've got updates. Updates are a way to push in-app notifications to your team members across any platform. We'll go over how to create an update. We'll go over where you can go into Supered to set up your settings correctly so that you can have Supered active everywhere. We've got process rules right underneath updates. Process rules has their own camp that happens every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. So we're not going to go too deep into this one. Process rules are a great way to keep data clean. They're a good way to put in parameters, to put in guardrails, all of that. We love process rules over here. Again, we have a camp dedicated directly to those. So if you want to register for that, you can register for it in the same spot that you registered for this. Analytics is for you data nerds. This is how you can kind of have that top level, high level view of how your team is using cards. If they're searching for specific cards, it will pull up search terms. It will pull up if there's underperforming terms, if there's a bad search. Utilization is, if they've logged in, they've accepted the invitation, they're using the extension, and then guide analytics are for another Supered asset that we'll cover for our guides, formerly called maps. We all kind of use those words interchangeably here. So if I use both, I'm sorry, they're guides, but I probably will use the word map. Packages have their own camp. That is a Supered partner asset access. And then partner, if you are a super partner, you have this button here. Packages have their own camp. Tuesdays at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, like process rules. Go ahead and register for that where you're registered here. All right, let's talk about bases though. Love that. So bases, the question I get the most from my super partners. So if you're one of our super partners, the question that I get the most, so if you have this, you're in great company, is the difference between bases and packages. Packages are your delivery mechanism. So in order to get stuff to your clients, you need to be able to put it into a package. So packages are the way you get it there. It's your vehicle. Bases are your housing. So that is where you can put and organize your content to deliver, to put where your people are working, all of that good stuff. So I clicked on the word bases here. You can also click this create base. If you're new in the Supered platform, you won't have a list view yet. It will probably have like a box up here of the default base that you get when you sign up for Supered. To get this list view unlocked, it's just 3 or more bases. That's all. That's it. But we're going to create a base together. I'm going to create base. The base name. Best way that I like to tell my partners in my book for the base name is if you're thinking about like your Google folder structure, if you're thinking about like computer folder structure, wherever you have a folder structure, the base itself can be like your master folder for the content, for the subject, for the niche, for the client, for the team. However you're thinking of wanting to create different bases. I like to use the Supered example because obviously Supered uses Supered. It'd be silly if we didn't. But internally, how Supered structures our bases is based off of teams. So each and every one of our teams has their own base. But for this, I am really not clever when I'm naming things. So mine is always get Supered 101 and then the date. But that's because I have to come back through and delete all of these, right? We don't need to see them every week. And then I would have hundreds of bases. I don't need that. So you can name it, and then you can give it a little bit of a description if you need to. Other things that I want to point out on this screen before we move on is hide in Chrome extension and archived. Hide in Chrome extension is quite useful if you are creating a lot of content, a lot of bases with a lot of triggers. If you don't know what a trigger is yet, that's okay. We're getting to it. But if you don't want everything showing up in both Sidekick and wherever you have Supered active with those trigger words, you're only specifically working on one base. You only want to see if that content is working and firing where it should. You can hide the content in the Chrome extension, which will pull it all out so that you're only seeing what you're working on. Archiving is quite useful if you're like me and you hate deleting anything because you have that little voice in your head like, but what if I need it? I do that with my closet all the time. I think I still have stuff from like undergrad, like frat parties that are themed that I would never wear again, but I'm like, but what if I need it? Archived is the way that you can still hold on to it, but it's not cluttering up your view. You're not seeing it everywhere. You can archive it. You still have access to it. All right, let's hit create. Create, and then we're going to pop into it. So in here, you have your get started, right? So you can hit get started, and that will take you directly to a card. Or if you want to hit that plus sign, you can create card, folder, guide, action plan, like I mentioned, is in that beta. So we're not going to go into it deeply. Definitely, we're going to have a camp for it. But we're going to go with a card, right? So my card title is boring again. I'm sorry, guys. I wish I was way more clever when it comes to naming things, but that is just not where my creativity shines. The card editor should feel familiar if you've ever used a word processor. So all of us, right? At this point, in 2024, I really hope every single person on this call has used a word processor. So you can enter in your rich text. So this is useful if you have things like SOWs, if you have SOPs. I mean SOWs too, I guess, but SOPs like process, right? If you have step by steps, if you've got frequently asked question documents, anything like that that you want to be able to give to your people where they're working as they're working, so they don't have to dig through, like a dusty Google folder structure. They don't have to search through Slack, through their emails, looking for these things. You can and should put them into a super card. But my favorite part of cards and kind of where they get really powerful is the ability to embed other items into them beyond just rich text. I like that because my ADHD brain likes videos. Like I like mind maps. I like visual things, right? I will read through an SOP if I have to, but if I can have a video walking me through, if I can have a step-by-step guide, I prefer that as a learner. So this really helps hit all kinds of learners, right? All kinds of learners on your team. Everybody learns a little bit differently. But what I love is our keyboard commands. You can backslash in here. And in here, you'll see that we have a whole lot of, basic blocks that you can do. So this is pretty much your rich text editing. And then down in here is where I really like it, where you can embed videos. So if you've got Looms, you've got videos, you've got YouTube videos that help train on a process or help walk someone through something. If you've got mind maps, so mural boards or lucid charts, things like that you want to embed, you can input project management tools. So ClickUp or Asana boards, anything like that. If it can be iframed, it can be embedded onto a super card. Most simply put, what an iframe is just a block of code. It's structured in a specific way, and it's a way that you can embed one website into another. That was the very simple MySpace generation era explanation. So if any of you are like actual developers out there, you might be like banging your head on the keyboard. And I'm sorry, I'm not a developer. I went to school for communications. So what are we gonna do? So you're able to put in like a video or anything. So I'm gonna choose iframe, and then I'm gonna come into my Loom account. I'm gonna grab something from here so that we can kind of go through, I don't know. See, this is usually what I have like set up beforehand, but I had a call right at the backed up against this one, so I did not do what I should have. Anyway, so I'm going to come into share for Loom, and this is Loom specifically. I'm using Loom because I'm familiar with it, but from what I've been told is every other kind of video recording platform has this kind of same feel to it when you're hitting share. We're going to copy this embed code. That's our iframe, right? I'm going to come back over into my Secret account, and you can do an embed URL if you want to, or we're going to do the iframe, and it's going to give me a little preview of the video, and I'm going to hit save. So in here, I can change the dimensions of my video if I need to. I'm going to make it a little smaller. Perfect. And the use case, if we're thinking it through, rather than just a random thing, the use case here that's powerful is being able to show, not tell, right? You can show the process via this card that has this embedded video into it. Instead of having what I just did, having to go through my Loom library to find it, I could have searched for this card in my Sidekick and it would have been showing, right? With these, the cards do require a little bit of text in order to save. I'm going to watch this video. We're going to create. All right. Our card is created. Beautiful. First place it lives is, within Super, right? Second place it lives is in Sidekick. So if I came over into my LinkedIn and I come into my bases and I search, watch this, it will pull up my card. So search terms will be either title or any other content within that card. That is why we do need to have some kind of words within the body of the card, right? So that it helps with searching. When I click on it, it's right here. So again, if we're going over putting your content, your processes, how you want your team to be working, right where they're working, you can have Sidekick open. I don't have anything blocking here. So if I had something very specifically talking about how to use LinkedIn, like for prospecting, I can have my video playing and I can follow along right as I'm going. The other really cool thing with Sidekick is it stays open. So I can navigate through and my Sidekick is staying open. We love that. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns. I haven't seen any come through. And this is always like the awkward when I ask for questions because I do want to give you the opportunity to ask questions, but there's that 10-second delay. So I always feel like I have to like chatter through it because I can't use music because like licensing and you know, because I always want to use Disney music. But Disney lawyers, scary. They'll come after you. They'll come for you. No need to vamp. Thank you. Let's talk triggers. So I mentioned triggers earlier. What's a trigger? In the context of Supered, triggers are the way that you can embed your content into other pages. So if we were looking at my LinkedIn just barely, you'll see that we've got, this little pink lightning bolt. We have this Super Jam logo. So we have a couple of things in here that have triggered off of a phrase. And it gives us cards, right? Now this is from a demo account, so these cards are a little bit silly. So bear with me, but how do I do this? How do we get it there? So we're gonna click on triggers. We're gonna create a trigger. Automatically, what the trigger will do, will take the title of the card to be your first trigger. You don't have to have it that way. It's okay. You can remove it. So if we want to trigger something on messaging, so if I'm using like a real world use case for this, if my company has a specific way that it wants us to use LinkedIn messaging, if there's like a specific order of operations on it, then I can connect this card. I can trigger this card next to messaging that always gives my team that order of operations. So I'm going to use messaging as my text, my phrase. Spelled that right? Yes. You want to make sure that it's spelled correctly, right? Because it is a direct match. It's a direct match. It's not case sensitive. You don't need to worry about that, but it is space sensitive. So if you have it spelled right, everything should be showing up where it's at. Still not showing up, double check that you don't have additional spaces before or after it. And then you can change your icon. Now, if you are a white label customer or you are one of our pro licensed seats, you do have the ability to upload your own custom icons. So that's pretty powerful when you're thinking through of just really kind of getting your logo everywhere. And you can also have ones that are GIFs, right? This guy dances or shakes a little bit. I don't know. Visibility we'll touch on really quickly. You can bring it down to a specific URL. It doesn't work the other way yet. So you can't say show everywhere but here, but we can have it just show up on a singular URL. So if I only wanted it to show up on, my linkedin.com/feed, I can do that. So it will only show up on messaging there. As it's set right now, this trigger will show up everywhere that the word messaging shows up. So even if it's not LinkedIn, it will show up, if I have messaging saying somewhere like in HubSpot, it will show up on that word as well. So that's where visibility can really get really useful. Yeah, you can have it show it on multiple pages. Exactly, yes. So right now, literally anywhere I have the word messaging, this guy would show up. So if I hit save trigger and then I come back into my LinkedIn, we'll refresh my page. We'll bring that guy right back out. There is our trigger. So again, if you're thinking of this in like a real life use case, if I had a very specific order of operations that I need my team to follow when it comes to LinkedIn messaging for prospecting, right? I can put that information for them right here so that it's always a reminder. You don't have people coming into Slack, into GChat, into Teamwork, wherever you have them messaging, right? They don't need to come in and say, how do we do this again? They can just click on that embedded icon, see that order of operations, and move on with their day as where they're working. They don't need to dig on a secondary platform. Okay. Triggers, you can have multiple triggers on one card. You just can't have multiple cards on one trigger. So what do I mean by that? If I wanted this card to show up in more places than just on messaging, I can create multiple triggers, but I can't have multiple cards showing on the word messaging. It will choose one or the other. Typically, it will choose the first one that gets saved. By typically, I mean 99.99% of the time. That 0.01% means something weird has happened. And I love weird. If that weird happens to you, let me know. I love when weird things happen. Okay, so let's talk about guides. Actually, no, we're still on cards. I want to talk about creating a card from the Chrome extension. So not only can you create a card back in Supered when you're logged into Supered on what I like to call the back end, you can create a card directly from the Chrome extension. So as you're working, you're in the flow of work, you don't want to break up your flow, but you're like, oh, I really do need a card for this, right? I need to be able to document this. You can create cards from the extension by hitting that plus sign. You can create a card and it will bring up the card editor here. Also gives you the ability to choose which base you want to put it into. And then if there's folder structure within that base, it gives you that opportunity as well. And you can create an embed trigger from here too. So if you want to do that, you're going through a flow of work. You don't have to break up your flow, go back into Supered. You can do it directly from Sidekick. The other way that you can do it that's pretty darn cool, in my opinion, but I think everything about Supered's cool, so grain of salt that, is the ability to look for cards by highlighting text and right-clicking. Now, the share settings that I have right now, it doesn't show you my iframe that pops up when I right-click, but when you do highlight and right-click, part of that menu that shows up will have your Chrome extensions, right? There's a section for your Chrome extensions that you've got. Sidekick has its own. You scroll down to Sidekick, and it gives you the opportunity to search for the text or create a card based off of the text. So if I hit the create card, it's saying eat because I didn't get the whole word. It will create a card with that text that I highlighted as the title, which I remember when this came out and I really was blown away. I thought it was magic. I still think it's magic. I don't know. Computer programming that's magic to me. I think that's modern day magic. So you're able to create content and cards as you're going through, how you're working. So I like to use LinkedIn because I think it's kind of like a safe website, right? That I don't accidentally show something to people I shouldn't be showing based off of like my HubSpot or something. And that's totally never happened. So I like to use LinkedIn, but if you're thinking about how you can implement Supered and cards into your everyday work, if you've got like a web-based app that you use, if HubSpot, Salesforce, literally anything that's web-based, you can use cards on. I always like to make a Mean Girls reference when it comes to where you can put cards and what you can put in cards. The limit does not exist, right? It's great. We have a good time. Okay, now we can talk about guides. So guides are really great as you are creating processes that are repeatable, that have a step-by-step. So I like to use, like, when you're first setting up HubSpot, connecting your email, right? Connecting your calendar, things like that. So when you hit record guide, and guides are content, so content lives where content lives in bases. We create guide in here. It will give me all of my windows that I have open. So I'm going to go into LinkedIn again, and it will pop open Sidekick, and Sidekick is recording my steps now, my clicks and my keyboard strokes. So if we give it a couple of clicks in here, we can see as it's coming along. In here, it's giving me this. Come back here, give that a like, and down in here, we'll see that I have made 6 navigations. I don't think that's the right word. It's not the right word. But I haven't made 6 clicks. Anyway, doesn't matter. There's 6 steps in this guide. This check mark means that I'm done. You can save it. The pause button is really useful if you need to navigate to another website that you have to put in maybe some sensitive information into, such as a password. You don't need the guide to record that. You can pause it and then restart it. Or if there's like redundant steps in there and you're like, I already have this in here. I don't need to put this 9 times. I'm going to pause it, get to the next spot, stuff like that. Or you have the option to cancel it. Maybe you've started recording. You're like, actually, I don't need that. You can delete it. But up in here, we are going to save it. We're going to name it. And you guessed it, it's going to be today's date. What can I say? I'm sorry. And then in here you can, if you put it into the wrong base, you're like, actually, it would make more sense to put it, into my guides base. Great. I'm going to leave it in there. And then I can control folder from here as well. Recreate the guide. That's going to pop us back over into Supered so that we can have capability to edit it. Right off the bat, as it's raw here, we have the Get Started and the Guide Me. Guide Me is in-app guidance. It does require the user of the guide to have the Chrome extension because it's a Chrome overlay. So you need to have the Chrome extension live in order for the Guide Me to work. And we'll look at that in just a second. Thanks, Jacob. You'll get the recording. And then Get Started is a step-by-step. So Get Started looks like this. So you can scroll, you can step through, and you can run it back, right? But to edit, I do want to go over through our edit tools here. You can edit text if you need to. You can edit the URL. And then within the image itself, there's a bunch of editing tools here. So you can come in closer onto your screen grab by using your mouse or your trackpad. You can move this guy around. So maybe, the mouse didn't exactly click where you wanted it to click. You also have the option to redact. So if you are creating a guide on, like, say, your HubSpot, and there's client information that you don't need everybody to see, but it's kind of the same process that you want them to see, you can redact the information out so that they don't see exactly what is being said, but they still get the gist of where to go. And you can also delete out steps, and you can move them up and down. The only limitation really right now is not being able to add in steps. That is coming. We are going to have that coming through, so keep your eyes out for that update. And we can save it. So that's creating a guide. Now, if you want to insert the guide into a card, so like we did with that video example of maybe you have like a walkthrough on a video, if you want to insert the guide onto a card and embed it, I really love doing that because it gives just another layer of training, of leaving yourself behind, of cloning yourself. I've had a lot of teachers, of leaders, educators that I would have loved to be able to just clone their brains. If we had had Supered, probably could have done that, at least in a way that's ethical, because apparently cloning humans isn't like scientifically ethical or something weird, but whatever. So to do that, you would just come into a card. So if I wanted to create a card, guide example, yeah. I really wish I was more clever when I was coming to naming. And then / and guide. This would give me all of the guides that are in this account. Maybe. There it is. And we would select it, it would embed it. And then we can trigger it from here. So if I wanted to trigger on, I'm running out of things on LinkedIn, I got to start removing stuff. Like my network, we can trigger it, save it, come back over, refresh. And there's our guide. So you are able to interact with it from here. So you have your processes, again, right where your people are working. They don't have to go dig through something. They have it. You're essentially holding their hand with them as you're going through. Okay. Alrighty. So that is bases and content. Again, bases can be thought of as like your Google folder structure. Your base is like your master folder name. So internally, the way Supered uses it by team, you can do it by niche, by company, by project if you need to, really anything like that. So just depending on how you have structured your business. Anything that is content belongs in a base. So what is content? Content is your trainings, your reminders, your best practices, your frequently asked questions, all sorts of stuff. That's your content. Best place to start. I know that getting started is probably the hardest thing because there is so much possibility. Best place to start, I like to start with stuff that gets asked the most. Does the guide have to be in base in order to be added to a card within the base? Correct, it does. So the guide does have to exist in the base. You don't have to put it onto a card. I like putting them onto cards so that I can then embed them. But if you just want to have the guide existing in a base, when you come into Sidekick, it has its own little little guy right here, and you can find them. I don't know why it's not showing up, the one that we just made, unless I do that. It's very strange. And they can find it just directly in Sidekick and navigate through there. I like to embed them just to really get my process and my information just really, really ingrained where people are working. Okay, let's talk updates. Updates are criminally underused in my opinion, because I think they're fun. They are ways that you can push in-page announcements. You can push information directly to your team members where they're working, where you have Supered active. And you can see who's seen it. You can see who's interacted with it. So again, internally, Supered uses this as a way to give information. So like, so Matt Bowling, our CEO, he'll publish ones on Fridays of like CEO thoughts of stuff that he's seen the team do that he's really liked, stuff that he thinks that we need to work on, and just things that are important to the Supered organization as a whole. Our marketing team will use it when they need things filmed or done or completed for them or pushed out. They'll use it to be like, hey, here's all the resources that you need for this. Please complete this by this day. And our engineering team uses it when they create new assets for Supered, or there's a bug fix that's been pretty massive. They add in anything. There's a new process to do stuff, anything like that, right? So to create an update, it's like anything else in Supered, you hit that create button that's up in the top right. You can title it. The display type is how it's going to appear to your users. So I like pop-up model. It's loud. It's a box just in the middle of the screen. You can also do a banner, a lot quieter, just kind of shows at the bottom of the screen. You can change who it's sent by. So if it needs to be sent by an entire department, you can do, from marketing. I can send it from like on behalf of my boss. If they're like, hey, can you push an update for me? I can send on behalf of them. I'm just going to put in yays. It's short. If you're a Supered partner, you are able to push these updates to your client accounts. So if you have created like a new base with new content, you can push that to them. Audience, you can restrict it to domains. So if you only need it to show up on HubSpot, like if you have created like a new workflow, you've turned something on, you can push the update saying, hey, this automation is now live. Media is what is going to show on the card itself. So you can do an image, you can do a video. So if I wanted to do a video, come back to my Loom here, put in my URL, it'll put my Loom here. You can connect a card as well. I always like to do random ones because then I look at it, I'm like, why is this here? So use cases for this, specifically for like our engineers, they'll put the Loom of their walkthrough of whatever they've created, how to use it, how it works. And then they'll connect a card of like deeper information. Marketing really for us is where connected card really comes through because there are additional assets that they'll need us to have. So they'll connect the card that has all of those assets in it. And then we have analytics as well, which keeps track of how the users have interacted, right? So if I preview this is what would show up everywhere that I have Supered active, and I mean everywhere. So obviously working at Supered, we have it active pretty much everywhere that we spend a lot of time on. So we'll have it active like LinkedIn, G Suite, all sorts of stuff, right? So anywhere that you go, anytime you refresh, this pops up. And then when you have it connected to a card, it forces the action to view the card. If you don't have a card connected, so if I wanted to take that off and preview it, it gives me that option to just complete. So it does keep track of who's completed your update, who's snoozed it, and who has seen it but hasn't done anything with it by hitting that X up here. I'm not going to publish this because there's no reason to. So those are updates. I love updates. Big fan. Okay, last thing. Let's go over settings a little bit. So settings you can get to two ways. You can come to your drop down here, or you can come down into this logo right here. It takes you to the same spot. Specifically, I want to talk about the extension setting. This is where you can get Supered active and showing on different domains. So like I mentioned, we have it active pretty much everywhere so that we can use both Sidekick and we can embed content if we need to. You just simply put in the URL and you hit save. Other things, you can look at general, everything else is just sort of settings. Right. So that is Supered 101. That is essentially getting started with Supered, right? We went over the tour, we went over bases, creating content within bases, triggering it, embedding it, creating from Sidekick, updates, all of the above. Do we have questions? You guys have been great asking questions as we go along. I love that. And I'm highly caffeinated, but it tastes like a dreamsicle. You can't stop. Okay. So I very much appreciate your time spent with me. I do highly encourage you to join us over in Super Jam. I'm going to drop the link to have to join it so that you can join our I can't do multiple things at once apparently today. Super Jam is our online community. It is a Slack community. It is free to join. I'm going to drop the link here. Go ahead and use it and join over there. That is kind of where announcements happen. That's where you can find support from other Supered users, other Supered partners, and just be able to interact with other people that are using Supered, get use case ideas, anything like that. We have a good time over there. And of course, thanks so much for joining me, for spending the last 37 minutes with me. I appreciate it. And as always, stay awesome, stay strong, and stay Supered. Bye, guys.